This morning we are going to do something for St. Patrick's Day. All right, so just for those ones that just jumped on, we are going to do our little leprechaun guy here. He's just a really cute leprechaun, and we're going to walk through the stages of doing that. So let's talk about him first. So there's a couple things that we're going to do first before we even make our cake balls. So we've got a hat, we've got the band around the hat, we've got the 4-leaf clover on his hat. So we're going to do all the pieces to his hat. We have his eyes. If you guys have watched my videos before, I've showed you how to do eyes. We're going to do them really quick. And so that we have all the pieces done. We have his hair and his beard. So we're going to do all these prep pieces first before we even make the cake ball, because once we make the cake ball, we're just going to attach them and it's going to go really quick. It'll be put together really, really quick. And that's a lot of the groundwork for your cake pops is if you can get it to the point where after you dip your pop, you are just able to add pieces and it comes together super quick. So that's what we're going to do this morning. Grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, sit back and watch, and hopefully this will inspire you guys to make it a lot more fun and a lot simpler for you guys to tackle these things. All right. First thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the chocolate 4-leaf clovers. Now I did make a whole bunch of them already. They're already dry, so I'm going to shift them off to the side here in a minute. This is a piping bag that I put candy melts in. So I just melted my chocolate, cut the very, very tip of the bag off just so I can have a little bit of chocolate come out. And I'm going to squeeze a little bit out and draw it back just a hair. I'm just going to put a blob on there and draw it. Just teeny tiny. And I'm going to do the same thing from the other side. And you guys know that if you're piping, you should always hold your bag straight up and down. I am not, because I want you to see what I'm doing. So, and I need 4 of them. I'm going to let them firm up while we work on other parts of our little leprechaun. So now we're going to make his hat. So we have the brim, and we have the little yellow band that goes around, and then we have the top of the hat. So we're going to work on the greens. I've taken my green. I just took my KitchenAid mixer with my pasta attachment and I just ran it through. It's just super thin. We're going to make the brim. So I have a cookie cutter, and usually what I do, here's an extra little head that I started. I take my cookie cutter and I want to make sure that it'll fit over the head. That's kind of how I judge how big I want to make it. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to make 2. We always make extra in case something happens. So here is 1. And I'm just going to smooth out anything that didn't quite cut nice and straight. So just firm up those little edges. And while I'm at it, I am going to just soften the center, because when we dip our pop, it's not going to have a completely flat head. So we want the brim of the hat to be able to sit nice and flush on our cake pop. So I'm just kind of creating a little bulge in the center. So we're going to put that aside. Now I want to do the top part of the hat, and I just want a little ball because I'm just making the top. So I rolled a ball. And I'm just going to spin it in my hands and kind of flatten the top and the bottom a little bit. I want to put an edge along the top. So now I have a nice little edge. I don't know if you can see that. And for the bottom, I want it nice and flat. So I'm going to push down and spin it on the table. Now it'll look like almost a Rolo candy. So I got a nice flat bottom and the pinched edge on the top. And what I want to do before I attach it to my other piece is I want to take my ball tool and I want to round that. So I'm going to push down and round it at the same time, because I want to take into account that the head that I'm putting it on is not a flat head, but it is rounded. So I want to make sure that I give that the opportunity to be able to sit on his head and not stick above it. All right, so here we go. It's got the little bevel on the inside and it's nice smooth around the top. So there's that part of the hat. We're just going to sit that on top of there, but we need to have the little yellow band. We want to put that band on first before we attach our hat. Again, I just took some yellow that I had and I put a bit of it through my KitchenAid's pasta maker, so it's nice and thin and nice and flat. And I just need enough to go around the band. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy palette knife and I am just going to cut a little tiny 1/8-inch strip. I'm going to give it a straight edge on one end so we can connect the other end to that. I'm going to take my paintbrush and water. And remember, water acts like glue. All right, so I'm going to add just a little bit of water. Now, with that, I'm just going to take it along the edge. I'm going to take my handy dandy palette knife and use that as a knife. So I'm going to cut straight down at that edge. So I'm just going to kind of push it together and make it disappear, and you'll never know there was a cut there. All right, so here we go. The cap is done. We're going to take a little bit of water again, and we're going to use it as glue. Now, you can use chocolate if you want, but you don't need to. I'm just going to wet it just enough, and I'm going to take my cap. I'm going to sit it right on top of my cap. Make sure it's nice and even. And pick it up. Now remember the hat actually had a little bevel in it, so I'm just going to push that down into the bevel. So we're going to sit that off to the side. The next thing we're going to do is make some eyeballs. Then I make all of my eyeballs, and it's just as simple as rolling out some white and some black. And I have 2 icing tips. One is a number 5. It's the smallest for the pupil, and then one a number 12. 2 of each one. 1, 2, 3, 4 of the whites, and I'll do the same amount for the blacks. We only need 2, so we're good. Now I'll grab all my little pieces. I just want tiny bits of water, so I have a super, super tiny paintbrush. This one has some. All right. And I'm going to use my handy dandy spatula, pick up the blacks and put them right in the eye. And then I'm going to push them down to make sure that they actually stick. Oh, I went down too far. And that happens. All right, so I'm going to pick my 2 that are closest in similarity. And we want to make sure we give our leprechaun cute little, sorry about the camera, guys, smiling eyes. So if you see on this one, I took right below the black modeling chocolate and I cut it straight across. See that? It kind of almost gives it the look of his cheeks are puffing up there because he is Irish, so they got those big cheekbones and stuff. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it right below that pupil. All right, so here are my eyes. We're going to put them aside until we're ready for them. Last night I made a recipe for cinnamon roll cake for my cake pops. We're going to take our dough. I'm going to make 2. Okay. I'm just going to roll it and push at the same time so that I'm continuing to push out those air bubbles. And you can feel when it comes together. There's just something where it feels crumbly in your hands, and then once it all pushes out and it comes together, you'll just feel it comes together. And then I'm going to roll it backwards. Once I roll it backwards, it'll take that football shape, and I don't understand the science behind it, but it does. It makes a nice round ball. So there we go. We have our ball. I want to make sure I make eye sockets for him. The bone tool, I've used it before. And I'm going to make 2 eye sockets about 1/4 of the way down. And then I'm going to take my thumbs and kind of smooth out for the bridge of his nose where those sockets are at. So now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and flatten the top of his head. I want somewhat of a flat so it's not all sticking up and causes the hat to look wonky on his head. Just a little flatness. And then I'm going to take my stick, pull my chocolate back into view. Now my chocolate I've already melted. It was nice and completely hot, and then I pulled it off about 30 minutes ago and I let it come back to room temperature or pretty close to room temperature. So I take my stick that's already been dipped once in the white, and I'm going to dip it half of what I dipped it originally. So in this case, I dipped it originally an inch. I'm going to dip it half an inch in this one. I'm going to tap a little bit off. And then as I put the stick in, I'm going to put it in and I'm going to spin it like a full turn. And then I'm going to come back half a turn. I want that chocolate to grab, use friction to grab onto the inside of my cake pop. So push it in and spin. And then I'm going to turn it half a turn back. I'm going to take that bottom chocolate off. So while those guys are firming up, the chocolate's starting to harden up, we're going to go ahead and make his hair and his beard. All right. So today we're going to use our sunflower cutter. We're going to make our little leprechaun's hair here. Oh, I cracked it in some places, but it's still workable. We'll come back to the others in a moment. All right, so it's cracked here. I can't use it there, but there's a couple other places here that we can use it. I use one of these shakers and I put cornstarch in it. Cornstarch is my friend when it comes to warm chocolate. It'll absorb the moisture from it. So I'm just going to do a little dab. It'll also put that barrier between my chocolate and my cutter, so it actually comes out of the cutter nicely. So all I'm going to do is just tap it in that cornstarch, tap some off, and then I'm going to cut two of them. All right, there's one. All right. I'm going to cut the top three off. I'm going to just put them aside. So now I have these 5 left. We're going to put them aside. We need to do his beard, and the same thing, we're going to pull that same color out. This is a cute little cutter. I don't know what it's called. I bought it probably, 15 years ago. So I don't even know what it's called to even put a link in the description, but it's just this little thing. But I'm going to cut one out, and I'm going to show you how I do his beard. And you probably could just use a cookie cutter like this and just cut a circle out and then create a beard shape from it. So like you could make like a cardboard stencil, if you will, and cut that out if you wanted. You could just make a rounded beard and use scissors to cut like where his whiskers or whatever. I'm leaving just the edge around, but then I'm going to cut the inside. I'm leaving probably 1/4 of an inch from the inward part to where the end of his beard is. Like there's 1/4 of an inch here. So I'm just going to cut right there. And I'm going to take that centerpiece out. I'll put that aside. So now I have this nice little shape. And I am just going to cut at an angle. No, I want to go this way because I want to go up his face. And we're just going to, I don't remember how many I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to cut up again. So that becomes his beard. And we'll just shape it up around his face like that. All right, at this point, we have everything that we need in order to put our little guy together. We're going to give our chocolate a nice stir because it right now is this perfect place. It's room temperature and we'll be able to dip nicely. We need a nose. I got some flesh tone here. I'm going to roll it into a teardrop shape. All right, so I got a little teardrop shape right there. And I'm just going to take a little bit of melted chocolate right along where the bridge of his nose is. Use it as glue. And I'm going to put my little teardrop on there to glue it into place. And I'm going to push it down in the bridge, over the bridge. I'm going to use my bone tool to smooth it out. So I'm going to smooth top. I'm going to smooth down into the eye socket. And then I'm going to push up on the nose. All right, so now we've got a nose on our little guy. Now we're going to dip. So I'm going to give my chocolate a good stir. I'm going to push it in at an angle because I wanted the chocolate to go down into the eye sockets first. I don't want air bubbles. So I'm going to push it in at a 45-degree angle and completely immerse my eye sockets first, and then I'm going to spin it. So push it in, and then I'm going to spin. I'm going to pull it back out, and I'm going to put my eye sockets down because I want it to run out first. I want to make sure that all that chocolate is completely run out of those eye sockets. I don't want any air bubbles in there. And then I'm going to go looking for the air bubbles. So there's one here, and I'm going to pop them, and I'm going to shake my cake pop at the same time. There's one there. All right. Just make sure there's no more. It's still dripping. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm just slowly spinning my cake pop in semicircles until the drips are done. It's still ready to drip once more. All right. That's good. Now I'm going to take this off the bottom because I don't like that. To me, it looks very unprofessional, but everybody is different. All right. I'm going to grab my eyes. Make sure my spatula is cleaned off. And shake it. Grab the other one. If I can get a hold of it. Drop it into that socket. Push it down, kind of even it up a little bit. And now we have eyes. At this point, I'm going to let it sit aside just for a moment. I want to put hair on them, but I don't want that chocolate to be that wet yet. So just use some air. I just need the surface to start to dry just a little bit. I just want to quickly cool this down. So let me put this down, and in the meantime, I will prep for my face. So I use poppy paint to paint on chocolate. It's the best thing that I have found out there. You can actually thin it really nicely. All right, let's go back to our 5-petaled flower. And we're going to take that middle one and do it right over top of his nose. So we're just going to lay it here. And that becomes his hair. And we're going to take his beard and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to bend it up slightly. And we're just going to kind of lay it on here up to his hairline. I'm just putting a little pressure to make sure it's completely stuck. Now there's ones that we had 3 left on. We're just going to put the rest of them here. I want to lift the one on the ends up a little bit to just add a few more parts to his hair. And then one on this side. lift that one up a little bit. Like this. So there we've got his hair and his beard on. Here's our hat. And this one here, I'm going to put a little chocolate on the front because now I got hair there and it's not against the wet chocolate. So I just want a little bit. And his hat sits right on there. Just like that. We're just going to let him sit off to the side for a moment, and then I'm going to paint his mouth on. So in the meantime, I'm going to stir my black poppy paint. All right, so at this point, I'm just going to put an eyebrow on him. And one on the other side. And I'm going to put a mouth. Okay, and there we go, guys. We have our leprechaun. We have one last thing to do to finish up our leprechaun. We got to put our 4-leaf clover on his hat. So we're going to take our little 4 hearts and we're just going to put them points together. And then all of a sudden, now we have a 4-leaf clover. All right, so let me squeeze my bag. All right, all I'm going to do is put a drop right in that center. I'm going to hold my paper so it doesn't go anywhere. And that's it. Ultimately, you should probably let that chocolate sit for about 10 minutes at least. All right, I'm just going to put a little dab of that chocolate as my glue. And we're going to try to lift this puppy up. Oop. Right, there you go. All right, there you go.